Keisha Holloway was living a life that many of her friends envied. At just 22 years old, she had the kind of lifestyle that most college students only dreamed of: designer bags, VIP sections at the hottest clubs, weekend getaways to Miami, and a sleek white BMW 4 Series coupe parked outside her Buckhead condo. All of it, courtesy of Marcus "Big Mark" Hamilton, a 47-year-old self-made real estate investor with deep pockets and even deeper secrets. Keisha had met Marcus almost 2 years ago at an exclusive lounge in downtown Atlanta. She was still a junior at Spelman College, balancing a demanding schedule of classes and a part-time job at a high-end boutique in Lenox Mall. He was the first man to walk in and treat her like she was something special: no games, no waiting, no stress. "Baby girl, I don't want you working like that," Marcus had told her on their third date, sliding a Chanel bag with a stack of cash inside across the restaurant table. "Let me take care of you." That was the beginning. Within months, Keisha had moved into a high-rise condo overlooking the city skyline. Her small off-campus apartment, a thing of the past. Her weekends of budgeting, over. Marcus made sure she never had to want for anything. But every luxury had a price. At first, Marcus was the perfect man. He introduced her to Atlanta's elite: businessmen, athletes, celebrities. She went from shopping at Forever 21 to stepping into Dior, Gucci, and Prada without checking price tags. Vacations to Dubai, Jamaica, and Cancun became part of her new normal. She even considered dropping out of college. After all, why stress over a degree when Marcus had already given her financial security? But soon, the cracks started to show. Marcus wasn't just generous, he was controlling. He had rules. No posting photos without his approval. No talking to men he didn't know. No late nights out unless he was with her. It started subtly: a possessive comment here, a passive-aggressive text there. But soon, it escalated. The lavish lifestyle began to feel more like a golden cage. By February 2024, Keisha was thinking about leaving him. She had saved up some money on the side. She wanted her freedom back. But deep down, she knew Marcus wasn't the type of man to let go easily. And on the night of March 9th, she made a fatal mistake. Keisha was at a private rooftop party with some of her friends from school. It was the first time in months she had gone out without Marcus. She had been ignoring his texts all night. At 12:04 a.m., her phone buzzed again. "Marcus. I'm outside. Get your ass down here now." Her heart sank. She didn't want to go. She didn't want to deal with him tonight. But Marcus wasn't the type to be ignored. Keisha sighed, gathered her things, and stepped into the elevator, her heels clicking against the marble floor. What she didn't know was that this would be the last time her friends would see her alive. March 10, 2024, 2:32 a.m. Keisha walked into the lobby looking tense. Marcus was waiting by the elevators, arms crossed, jaw clenched. They exchanged a few words. Then, Marcus grabbed her wrist. She tried to pull away, but he held on tighter. The footage cuts to them entering the private elevator that led straight to his penthouse suite. That's the last time anyone saw Keisha Holloway alive. At 4:06 a.m., a neighbor called 911. "I heard screaming, and then it just stopped." When police arrived, Marcus was alone. He told them, "She left. I don't know where she went." But something wasn't right. Blood stains, small, but noticeable, were found near the kitchen. And then, the security footage surfaced. The world would soon see what really happened that night. The officers who responded to the 911 call that morning didn't know what they were walking into. The Phipps Plaza residences were some of the most expensive in Buckhead, home to executives, celebrities, and people with enough money to keep their business private. At 4:18 a.m., 2 Atlanta PD officers arrived at the penthouse of Marcus Hamilton. The door opened slowly, and there he stood, barefoot, wearing a fitted white t-shirt and gray sweatpants. His expression was calm. Too calm. "Officers," Marcus said, his voice measured, like he had rehearsed this moment. "Is there a problem?" The officers explained the noise complaint, mentioning that a neighbor had reported screaming. Marcus chuckled, shaking his head. "Screaming? Man, my girl and I got into an argument, that's all. She left a while ago." They asked if Keisha was still inside. "She left, bro, y'all can check if you want," Marcus said, stepping aside. "I got nothing to hide." The officers entered. The place was spotless, too clean for an argument that had supposedly ended in screaming. The living room was sleek, modern, untouched. The white marble countertops in the open-concept kitchen gleamed under the LED lights. But then, one of the officers noticed something. A single, dark stain, barely visible on the polished kitchen floor. It looked like someone had tried to wipe it away. "Mind if we take a look around?" the officer asked. Marcus folded his arms and leaned against the counter. "Go ahead." The officers checked the bathroom. Empty. The bedroom. Empty. The walk-in closet. Empty, except for Keisha's designer heels and handbags, neatly arranged like she still lived there. But there was no sign of Keisha herself. One of the officers turned back to Marcus. "When did you say she left?" "Around 3, Marcus replied, eyes steady. "She was mad. Stormed out. You know how women get." The officers noted the lack of security footage showing Keisha leaving the building. Marcus Hamilton was the last person to see Keisha Holloway alive. And nothing about his story made sense. Keisha Holloway had been missing for over 12 hours, and the tension in the air was suffocating. By the time the police formally declared her a missing person, her friends and family had already begun piecing together the unsettling details on their own. Her best friend, Tiana Moore, couldn't shake the last text Keisha had sent her at 12:37 a.m., barely an hour before she vanished. I swear this man is crazy. I gotta figure out how to get out of this. If I don't text you back in an hour, call me." Tiana had fallen asleep, missing the message. When she woke up the next morning and saw that Keisha had never texted back, she called. Straight to voicemail. She called again. And again. Nothing. Panic set in immediately. This wasn't like Keisha. Even when she was hungover, tired, or just ignoring people, she always checked in eventually. Something was wrong. Tiana got in her car and drove straight to Marcus's penthouse in Buckhead. She barely had time to park before she ran inside, demanding to see Keisha. The doorman at the Phipps Plaza residences recognized her. "I saw her last night," he admitted. "Came in just before midnight." But what?" He hesitated. "But I never saw her leave." Tiana's hands started shaking. "Marcus is up there right now?" The doorman nodded. Tiana pulled out her phone and dialed Marcus. It rang. And rang. No answer. Then, as if he knew she wouldn't stop calling, her phone finally lit up. "Marcus Hamilton." She answered so fast she almost dropped it. "Where's Keisha?" she demanded. Silence. "Marcus, don't play with me." "Where is she?" A deep sigh on the other end. "She left," he said. "What's the problem?" "You're lying." "Why would I lie?" Tiana knew better. Keisha had been talking about leaving him for months. She had told her just 2 days ago that she was planning to cut Marcus off for good. She was going to break up with him. She was getting away. Now, she was gone. Tiana hung up and did the only thing she could think of, she called 911. "Hi, I need to report a missing person. Her name is Keisha Holloway. She was last seen at her boyfriend's condo. And I think something bad happened to her." By the time detectives arrived at Marcus Hamilton's penthouse, it was already late afternoon. This time, he wasn't as relaxed. He was annoyed. "Man, y'all already asked me this," he said, standing in the doorway. "Keisha left last night. I don't know where she went after that." Detective Andre Parker, a seasoned homicide investigator, watched him carefully. "Mind if we come in?" Marcus hesitated. It was only for a second, but Parker caught it. Then, Marcus stepped aside. "Do what y'all gotta do." The detectives walked in. Something felt off. The condo was too clean. The kitchen smelled like bleach. The white marble floors shined just a little too much. Detective Parker spotted a single faint stain near the kitchen island. He crouched down, running a finger over it. Marcus saw and scoffed. "You think I killed her or something?" "Why would we think that?" Parker asked, standing up. Marcus folded his arms. "I'm just saying. Y'all in here like I did something. That girl walked out of here last night. But she never made it home," Parker said. "And nobody has seen or heard from her since." Marcus licked his lips. "That ain't my fault." "Maybe," Parker said. "Or maybe you just cleaned up real well." The tension in the room thickened. But Marcus was smart. He wasn't going to crack that easily. Then the detectives got the security footage. What they saw changed everything. Keisha walked into the lobby at 11:47 p.m. Marcus was already waiting for her by the elevators. She looked hesitant. Marcus reached for her wrist. She pulled away. He grabbed her again. They stepped into the private penthouse elevator. The doors closed. And then, nothing. Keisha never left. For 3 hours, the detectives watched every camera angle in the building. There was no footage of Keisha leaving. Marcus had been lying. And now, it was time to confront him. They brought Marcus into the interrogation room the next day. The interrogation room was silent except for the faint hum of the overhead fluorescent light. The air was thick with tension, the kind that only came when a man knew the walls were closing in on him. Marcus Hamilton sat at the steel table, his fingers interlocked, tapping against the cold surface. His face, usually smug and composed, was tight with agitation. He had been in this room for 3 hours, but he hadn't said a word that mattered. Detective Parker sat across from him, patient, calculating. He'd seen this before, the arrogance, the defiance. Men like Marcus thought they were untouchable. But Parker knew something Marcus didn't. They had evidence. He reached into a manila folder and pulled out a single glossy photograph. He slid it across the table. It was Keisha's phone. The one they found in the dumpster behind his building, cracked screen smeared with what forensics confirmed was her blood. Marcus barely looked at it. "That ain't mine," he muttered. Parker ignored him, reaching for another photo. This one was Keisha's red high heel, found the same way, dumped, discarded, still damp from the rain that had fallen the night before. "You ever seen these before?" Parker asked, his voice steady. Marcus exhaled loudly, rubbing his temples. "Man, I told y'all. I don't know where she at. She left." "Right." Parker leaned forward. "Except we have security footage, Marcus. Keisha walked into your building. She got in the elevator with you. She never walked out." Marcus didn't flinch, but his nostrils flared slightly. "Now, you want to tell me how that's possible?" Parker pressed. Silence. "You said she left around 3 in the morning, Parker continued. "But there's no record of her calling an Uber. No texts to her friends saying she got home safe. No camera footage of her stepping outside that building." More silence. Parker let the moment stretch, then sighed, shaking his head. "You cleaned up, didn't you?" "Still nothing." You wiped down your condo, probably thought you got rid of all the evidence, Parker said. But the thing about blood, Marcus, it never really disappears. Marcus swallowed hard. Parker leaned back, placing another photograph on the table. A luminol test of Marcus's penthouse. Blood splatter patterns on the kitchen floor. A faint outline of drag marks leading toward the bathroom. You're looking at the truth, Marcus, Parker said. You can sit here and pretend all you want. But the evidence is stacking up. And once we run your car through forensics, we're gonna find even more. Marcus stiffened slightly. Parker smirked. Yeah. We know about the car. Keisha Holloway had been missing for 3 days. The city of Atlanta was on edge, her name flooding social media with hashtag Justice for Keisha and desperate pleas for answers. The police knew they had their guy. They just needed to find her body. It was a construction worker who found her first. On the 4th day, a man working a site off Interstate 285, just outside the city, noticed something strange near the edge of the property. A heavy, black plastic bag, torn open, barely concealed under a pile of dry leaves. Flies circled the air. The smell hit him first. When he pulled the bag back, he stumbled away in horror. The police arrived within the hour. By sundown, the news had already broken. Keisha Holloway had been found. Wrapped in garbage bags. Her body badly bruised, showing signs of strangulation. Her nails were broken, as if she had fought for her life. She had fought. But Marcus Hamilton had won. Or at least, he thought he had. Marcus was arrested that evening. His penthouse was sealed off as a crime scene. His car, a sleek black Mercedes-Benz, was confiscated. Inside the trunk, forensics found more blood. They found Keisha's hair strands near the latch. They found fibers from the plastic bags she had been wrapped in. It was over. At his arraignment, Marcus pleaded not guilty, but the prosecution tore him apart. They presented the security footage showing Keisha's last moments. They presented the texts she had sent her friends, telling them she feared for her life. They presented the GPS records from Marcus's phone, showing that he had driven to the exact location where her body was found at 4:38 a.m., just 2 hours after the last time Keisha was seen alive. His defense tried to argue reasonable doubt, claiming there was no direct proof that Marcus had killed her. But then, the prosecutors played the 911 call from a neighbor. The chilling words rang through the courtroom. I heard screaming, the neighbor's voice trembled. It was loud. It went on for a while. And then it just stopped. Keisha's mother wept quietly in the front row, holding on to Tiana for support. The jury took just 5 hours to deliberate. The verdict? Guilty. The judge looked Marcus in the eye as she handed down the sentence. Mr. Hamilton, you took a young woman's life in an act of pure cruelty. You thought you could erase her. Hide her. Pretend it never happened. But the truth has a way of surfacing. Then she delivered her ruling. Death by lethal injection. Marcus Hamilton was led away in cuffs, his face void of expression. For him, the game was over. But for Keisha's family, the pain would never end. Keisha Holloway's funeral was held on a crisp Saturday morning in late March, a little over 2 weeks after her body was found. The church was packed beyond capacity, people spilling out onto the sidewalk, standing shoulder to shoulder. She was more than a headline. More than a trending hashtag. She was a daughter. A best friend. A college student who had dreams bigger than the city she lived in. The sanctuary of New Light Baptist Church, deep in the heart of Southwest Atlanta, was silent as her mother, Angela Holloway, stood at the front of the room. She clutched a folded piece of paper in trembling hands, but when she finally spoke, she didn't look down to read. My baby girl was full of life, she said, her voice cracking. She loved to dance. She loved to laugh. She could make a whole room smile just by walking in. And now, she's gone. Just, gone. A soft sob rippled through the crowd. Angela took a deep breath. And for what? She continued. Because a man thought he owned her. Because he thought she was his property. Her grief turned to steel. I will not let my baby's name be forgotten. She turned her gaze toward the young women in the audience, the ones who sat with their arms folded tightly across their chests, their eyes shadowed with something deeper than grief. You don't owe a man your life, she said. No amount of money, no gifts, no promises can make up for control. For violence. For fear. She inhaled sharply. If you are in a situation like my baby was, get out. Don't wait. Don't make excuses for him. Run. Because the next funeral might be yours. A murmur of agreement rolled through the crowd. Her words would haunt the city long after the service ended. Keisha was buried in Lincoln Cemetery, in a powder blue casket, the color she always said made her feel soft, but strong. Her grave became a place of pilgrimage, where women came to whisper their own stories, to leave flowers, to make silent promises to themselves that they would never let what happened to Keisha happen to them. But for some, it already had. And the cycle wasn't stopping. Keisha Holloway's case wasn't just another tragic love story gone wrong. It was a wake-up call. The trial had shined an ugly spotlight on the world of sugar dating, a lifestyle that many young women entered thinking they were in control, until they weren't. News outlets ran deep-dive investigations. Social media exploded with women sharing their own stories of manipulation and abuse at the hands of powerful men. The conversations weren't just about Marcus Hamilton. They were about all the men like him. Men who groomed, who controlled, who convinced young women that love and power were the same thing. Marcus Hamilton had been convicted, but for every Marcus behind bars, there were 100 more walking free. Angela Holloway refused to let her daughter's death be in vain. With the money raised from community donations, she launched the Keisha Holloway Foundation, dedicated to helping young women escape abusive relationships before it was too late. Her mission was clear. Education. Prevention. Protection. She worked with local colleges to provide resources for women in controlling relationships, from emergency shelters to legal aid. She pushed for legislation, for tougher laws on domestic violence, for accountability in the world of transactional relationships, for better police intervention in cases of coercion. Most importantly, she made sure Keisha's name was never forgotten. Because the truth was, Keisha could have been any girl. And the world needed to remember that. Keisha Holloway's story was not unique. Her case was part of a larger epidemic, one that wasn't just happening in Atlanta, but in cities all over the country. Men like Marcus Hamilton didn't just exist in penthouses and luxury condos. They existed in college dorms, in nightclubs, in quiet suburban homes where the neighbors never heard a thing until it was too late. For every woman who escaped, there was another who didn't. The statistics were chilling. 1 in 3 women would experience intimate partner violence in their lifetime. More than half of all female homicide, women everywhere who might be trapped in situations they don't even realize are dangerous. This isn't just about one man. This is about a system that allows men like Marcus Hamilton to thrive. And now, we need to talk about it. What do you think? Do you believe justice was served in this case? How can we better protect young women from situations like this? Have you or someone you know ever been in a controlling relationship and felt powerless to leave? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't let Keisha's story be forgotten. Hit that like button if you believe Keisha deserves justice. Subscribe to this channel for more true crime stories that need to be told. Share this video, because the more people who hear Keisha's story, the more we can prevent this from happening again.